Well,
Interesting.
okay, that's pretty reasonable. What other things would you disagree with that have been going on thus far, or any more things you do like, or
Uh, I mean, to be
especially how about
honest,
oh my bad,
good.
how about like foreign affairs? What's happening with Israel, Gaza, or even like Iran? What are your thoughts about how it's been treated thus far?
Um, well, so I was going to say, like, this is the only area that I think Trump is winning right now is immigration. Going on to foreign policy, I'm going to try to keep the cussing down, but it is a total shit show. The Trump administration has just crapped the bed all over every foreign policy engagement that they have come in and tried to resolve in the first 100 days. And it would be one thing to me if you came in and you were like, you seemed, I don't want to say competent, but you seemed like you were having a, like you drew a line in the sand, you were going to have a backbone, you were going to stand by it, and it's just taking longer than you originally thought. That's one thing. But you have come in and drawn a line, then backpedaled, then done this, then done that, then done, nobody on the entire globe knows where the U.S. actually stands on these issues at this point, and it's incredibly frustrating to me. I think, well, one issue at a time. I guess we'll start with Israel and Gaza. So it's kind of been quiet for the most part. I mean, so before Trump even got elected, a lot of the conflict was resolved. So they had already bombed Hezbollah, the crap out of Hezbollah. Gaza is a ruinous heap for, and then what else? Yeah, I guess Yemen, if you want to wrap that into there, or you want to wrap that into the Iran issue. But
Oh
Israel and
yeah,
Gaza was
yeah.
Israel and Gaza was pretty well. It's at the same point that it was when he took office. I'll say that there's been no headway in eliminating any foreign member or any kind of like peace agreement or anything like that. I've heard rumors of a 5 to 7 year peace deal. But yeah, what was I leaving it
Oh,
at?
here I
Like
got
I
you.
said,
You're talking about how there really hasn't been any meaningful change regarding Gaza. Basically, how there was a brief reprieve, a bit of a ceasefire, but ultimately things went back to the way they were, and the strip is in shambles still.
yeah, I mean, and the strip's going to be in shambles for forever. Like I said, I know they came in and they were trying to do hostage deals. There were some negotiated portions, but it all seems to have just fallen apart. Israel hasn't gotten its bodies back, and Palestine hasn't gotten uh, their terrorists back. I don't know. I can't remember the exact details. But there doesn't seem to be any kind of like peace agreement or actual ceasefire on the table anymore. Um, and the fact that it's quiet may mean that I'm just wrong or that I'm uninformed, because it's definitely not occupying the headlines like it has for the past year and a half. But I just don't see any kind of meaningful um, ceasefire or like staunch agreement, or even what's going to happen to Gaza now. Like all we know is the Gazans are like, you're not going to occupy it, and Israel's like, well, you're not staying there. And then Trump comes in and is like, well, maybe I'll buy it and turn it into Mar-a-Lago on the Mediterranean. And it's like, n- stop. Like, and I'm not even opposed to the idea, but like, you got to approach this with a level of seriousness that it actually deserves.
Oh
Right.
yeah,
So
yeah.
what would you want him to do?
Well, so like I said, I actually don't totally disagree with like a U.S. occupation of Gaza. The only real concern I have there is like now you're putting U.S. lives at risk. But there are ways. So like his deal, he's got a mineral deal with Ukraine right now that they've already agreed to. But there's tons of natural gas and oil off the coast of Israel in the Mediterranean. If we could strike up some kind of agreement with Israel, like hey, occupation or some kind of like I said, minerals deal with them, like we're doing with Ukraine, I wouldn't be opposed to that. Now, as far as like the U.S. buying Gaza as like a 51st state or whatever it is, I'm not super interested. If anyone could turn it into, a lucrative real estate investment, it'd be Donald Trump. But I just I don't really all I want is I want a concrete plan. Like I need something hashed out here,
Right? You're
and really you just
not super picky on the details, right? You just need something.
yeah. I mean, so there are going to be things that I disagree with in any administration, but one thing that I really drives me nuts in almost all of them is if like I need you to come in and be like the adult in the room, like have the decision made, and then not necessarily I don't want to say like enforce American will, but yeah, kind of like look, I want you to be at peace. What do we need to do to get that to get that done? And if both parties are not going to participate, like okay, well I'm going to have to do something more extreme, like buy Gaza and just fill it with oil rigs.
Yeah, well, I do agree that, something more concrete would be better because, Trump's style is he kind of just throws things at the wall and kind of sees what sticks. But like in your fantasy for like what Trump could do, like your ideal scenario, what would happen to the Palestinians, or how would Israel be treated? Going forward, assuming this is like some kind of peace deal, what would be your ideal set of events?
So my ideal outcome for this entire conflict here is Hamas totally decimated. I mean, down to the last man, wiped out, gone. I think they're a bunch of terrorists. Uh, Hezbollah, same thing. So my goal would be any terrorist organization that is actively firing upon Israel. So that I guess would include the Houthis every now and then. But every single one of them needs to be utterly decimated. Now, the Palestinians themselves, people who aren't active members of Hamas, don't support Hamas, which correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that like the last numbers out of Gaza and the West Bank, there's only like 20% of Palestinians who don't support Hamas. Like even like strictly on October 7th, they're like 80% of their population thinks it was totally justified. And it's like, and I know there's a bigger story that we're not going to get into right now about, the origins of this conflict and how long they've been fighting. They've been fighting since Old Testament times. Like I, I would like to see any remaining Palestinians out of Israel proper. Like you're gonna go to Egypt, you're gonna go to wherever it is you're gonna go, and we're just going to resolve like it's a one state solution in my mind.
So
I'm tired.
you would rather have these people exiled, basically.
Yeah, I mean yes. So I don't believe in the possibility of a two-state solution. I think the more we keep trying to force this two-state solution down the region's throat, the more hostility there's been. And if we want an end to the hostility, this a one-state solution is where it's at. Now, if you want to argue that like, okay, we're going to have to give Israel a state somewhere else, we could argue that. The problem is Israel's winning the war right now, and the strong position doesn't give up to the weaker position. So I just like I said, my final goal is a true one state solution. And
So
in my mind, I think it's better and more likely that that is Israel's one state, and we can send the Palestinian refugees to other Muslim countries in the surrounding area. It's not like there's only one that they can go to. It that's kind of my like ultimate dream goal. And it I can't even say like that would establish peace in the region immediately because it wouldn't.
How would
A
that
lot of these
establish
people.
peace? That would, I mean, like, that would ramp everything up.
So I don't know.
What do you mean you don't know?
So that what I was gonna say was like they're gonna try to reconquer their land, like just like anybody is going to, but with like a dominant force in defense of your own border, which is much easier to maintain when there are not terrorists on like 15 feet on the other side of this line firing rockets at you. Like I think I think it is the best solution for long term peace, not immediately short term. And you're I mean probably right. It may in fact get even uglier. Because I know Egypt's been really reluctant to take the Palestinians in, and then what was it, Jordan? Like Jordan's afraid that it'll topple their whole dynasty. Like they're like they'll come in and coup us, like they just did in oh Lord, what's the name of the country? It's not Saudi Arabia, is it? Where they just overthrew like a couple months ago?
Oh, Syria?
Yeah.
Syria, yeah, they just the ISIS or some ISIS offshoot came in and overthrew the entire government. Jordan doesn't want that to happen to them. Egypt doesn't want to happen to them. Like that's but you know what? Like it's better you deal with your own people than continue this crap show. Uh
Well, how about I ask this? What uh, uh there's two things in my mind. One thing, I am, you know, I am receptive to arguments of like the strong may impose their will upon the weak, and that's just kind of, the way of things. So, when Israel subjugates the Palestinians, it might be tragic in one sense, but also that's just kind of life. On the other hand, though, my problem with that is that were it not for American support, I don't think actually Israel would be able to uh, stay in that region. I think Israel would probably be destroyed or collapsed in one way or another because without our support, the people of the region would be able to rise up and force them out. And in terms of peace, honestly, I think the end of Israel would probably bring more peace to that region. In terms of like where all conflict stems from in that area, I mean, there's at least if not a cause with Israel, you can always link something back to Israel. In the last, honestly, like 100 years. But you value Israel, right? So you,
I
why
value
is it that you value Israel over any other state in the Middle East?
I think we share more in common with Israel as Americans than we share with, say, Iran. At least Iran as it is now. You could make an argument. I think it was like the '80s that Iran was like pretty liberal for a Muslim country. Um,
Oh,
but I
well,
think
yeah,
what
back when the Shah was running it,
right.
and he was backed by us, and yeah, we had much better relations with them way back when. Uh, I
And it,
would say though, I mean, in terms of development, the Iranians are very well developed. Educate. If it weren't for sanctions, I would say that would probably be a pretty prosperous nation and almost something that I could envision a lot of Westerners being comfortable. Visiting, going, being tourists over there.
I
Similar to the UAE and other Gulf states.
I think that's pretty nuts. I mean, so Iran has empirical or Persian Empire ambitions. I think they want to govern basically the entire region. They had Iraq and Afghanistan under their thumb until offshoots come off, and now they're funded by Iran. They're proxy states. Um, and that just again, like with the funding of terrorism that they do in the region, and you could argue the definition of terrorism, like are terrorists people who are uprising against Israel? Well, yeah, but they're also like terrorists because they have like they meet the actual definition. I don't see, I mean, without more liberal reforms in Iran, people from the West being able to go there and comfortably vacation. Uh, I mean,
Well,
just pull out your rainbow flag in downtown Tehran and let's see how long you last.
well,
I
okay. A couple things. I mean, yes. Iran, nominally, they do support our enemies, but Hezbollah, Hamas, the Houthis. But I would argue that were it not for our support of Israel, that these people wouldn't be opposed to us anyways, and that honestly, we could be on a were it not for Israel, we could be on a path to peace with the Iranians, and maybe they would be the regional hegemon because they're so strong relative to the other states in the region. But
So it would be Iran or India.
oh yeah, yeah, yeah. If you wanted to, I guess the
Well,
South
and
Asia, yeah.
And just really quick, I do think it is funny that like, we're supposed to believe Iran is this massive like empire. They want to like reclaim parts of Iraq and parts of Jordan and stuff, but meanwhile, they haven't moved an inch in their borders in forever. And then you have Israel who has like literally been expanding their borders as much as they can to be, greater Israel, right? So, that's
Right. So that's
like
true.
Israel's the expanding empire here, right?
So I don't think that's necessarily true. So just like the US occupied and then whatever the word is, we took in the Philippines, like they're now a US nation or state. Some weird word I can't recall at the top of my head, but that's what Iran's doing. So like they're occupying with like and they've left enough kind of ambiguousness between their funding and who is running these countries and who's overthrowing governments in these other countries. They are expanding their empire, just not through like actual military, like shove out the populace and then occupy it. And just the quantity of land and peoples that they're occupying is way larger than anything Israel's doing. But I don't disagree that like I for sure believe that Benjamin Netanyahu and really Israel at large eventually wants to take back the West Bank, maybe as far north as southern Syria and Jordan, and be like a true, I don't know, first temple Israel again.
Are
Uh,
you opposed to a greater Israel where they like take Lebanon, parts of Syria, parts of Jordan, or are you?
I'm not. I think it's silly to fight over land at this point in our history, but people have been doing it forever. They're not going to stop now. And frankly, if you come try to take my land, I would fight you for it. Um, I wouldn't. I would not be. I probably would be. I probably would be against unnecessary expansion. So the issue I have here is like they've been given all the all the reason in the world to now go in and occupy these lands they're basically talking about because Hezbollah set up in their north in all of these lands that they're talking about reconquering. Um, Gosh, is the Palestinian Authority in the West Bank like they're just as big a terrorist supporters as Hamas, and like I said, they'd be given all of the reason to do it, and I would have a problem saying no, you cannot go and occupy these lands that have been repeatedly over the past 30 years occupied by terrorists who are trying to destroy you. And my reasoning is basically, if the cartel started shooting rockets into Texas, we would own Mexico tomorrow. And I wouldn't have a problem with it. Now, if there was no fact, like let's assume by the grace of God, there's a peace deal that comes through tomorrow, and there is just no firing on anybody in the Middle East, and then Israel suddenly like, hey, you know what? We're going to occupy the West Bank. We're going to take these lands back. That would be an expansionist power, and that's not something like that's war for no reason in my mind.
Well, yeah, that's what
Um,
this entire conflict has been.
so yes,
I mean, they just
I don't know. So it's
they just had to bomb through those babies to get to the Hamas terrorists, Garrett. They just had to. They had to do
That's
it.
what happens when you use human shields, man. Like I don't know what to do. I don't know what to tell you. Like if
Right.
you're
That's
gonna
why they
place your
had to
terrorist
kill. That's why
bases,
they had to kill 60,000 of them. Right. That's why they had to kill 60,000 of them.
when you're putting your bases underneath schools and hospitals, then when the schools and hospitals get hit, the blood's on your hands, not on Israel's. Like
Right.
that's.
Okay.
I mean,
That's
so it's the
interesting.
same thing. So like, have you ever talked to anybody who was in like the first couple invasions of Iraq when we went into Iraq.
No.
Like, have y'all seen American Sniper?
Sure.
So in American Sniper, there's actually a scene where Chris Kyle is posted up on a building and they send out a kid with an RPG. And I mean, this kid is, 6, 7 years old, maybe a little bit older. I don't know how old the actor was, frankly, but it's a child. Send him out with an RPG to go blow up Marines. And I can tell you, and Chris Kyle took the shot. Like that's what you do. Like it's either my men or this kid. And unfortunately, that's how it works. And that's what happens. Like he's Chris Kyle in American Sniper is not the
You
only
know,
person I've heard this from.
Garrett, no, this is ridiculous. This is I can't let this slide. So it's totally different whenever Marines are doing a patrol in Baghdad and there's a bomb that's going to blow up and kill Marines versus launching a fucking Tomahawk missile from 150 miles away on a hospital you know is littered with civilians. Like there's I don't you can't pretend to tell me you don't know the difference.
I think it's a difference in scale, but not in principle. Like I
How?
really do.
How?
Well, because again, these people are building they're keeping the rockets that they're firing into Israel underneath these hospitals, right? So you can
Well, I don't
either
know
let
about
them keep
right.
the rockets
I mean,
and keep.
you said yourself, they've done plenty of bombing, right? They've done plenty of bombing, and they haven't been able to root out Hamas or their armory. So, like, are they really sure
Well, so
that it's
that's
under there?
that's another problem too. Is like Hamas is an ununiformed enemy. So they hide. They literally look the same as any other Palestinian. So you cannot, in a line of 10, from of Palestinians, pick out who was Hamas and who was not. It's an impossible
So
task.
you have to kill all 10, is what I'm hearing. That's what makes the most sense.
I mean, so if one of them has an RPG, like I guess, like
Right, but none of them. No, no. Remember, they're all the same, and they're all in civilian clothing. So you just have to kill all. I mean, what other option do they
I'm
want us
not
to do?
saying you
Those
have to kill all of them.
monsters. You
So
know what I mean?
so here's the thing:
Kill
if
all of
they're
them
ten,
and their preborn daughters. How about that? That's what I'm thinking.
I don't see. It is terrible that children are dying in this, but it's terrible that children die in any war. Children died when we invaded Iraq, children died in Korea, children died in Vietnam. This is not a new thing in war,
Well,
right?
definitely not to
This
the
is the
American
this is
side.
the reality of war. So who do you blame? So who do you blame for the dead children in Germany when Europe bombed the crap out of them in World War II? Is it Germany's fault for starting the war? Is it Europe's fault for launching the bombs? Like, it's a tragedy, but it's a reality. And
It's
if you would
definitely the
stop, put,
Allies. It's definitely the people who dropped the bomb's fault.
I mean, I guess like that's
Like,
that's an opinion. I don't understand. So if I swing at you, if or you know what, I pull a gun on you and then hide behind my 2-year-old daughter and just keep shooting at you, knowing that you're not going to shoot because
here's a
my two
more
year old daughter is
realistic.
my human shield.
Here's a more realistic one. All right, we don't have to do a made up one. Okay. Let's say you're on a compound, you're off the grid farming, right? And you and your 2-year-old daughter are running around, and you both go into your house, right? And you're in your room and she's in her room, and then the government decides, well, we know Garrett's in there, so we'll just level the entire thing, right? It's
Yeah.
not
So
it's
that's
not it's
that's
not as
pretty
if you're using her as a shield, right? It's not
right. That's
quite that
pretty fucking
simple,
terrible.
and
Like
that's what we'll do.
you're living at home.
Well, that's what do you? I don't see the disconnect here.
I mean, that's a good analogy. Um, I mean, it's hard for me to say. It's really not though. So let's. I'm going to use a different. This is a made up analogy, but if like Chicago was taken over by terrorists, but there's still innocent people, would the U.S. government just bomb Chicago, or would they send in the National Guard?
No, well,
Um,
yeah, I agree.
so
Now, I do want to move on here because I don't want to spend too much time on this one. But I just have to get your
oh,
last little bit on what is your position on like war with Iran?
I mean, as necessary.
Would you
Like
say
I
we're
don't
at
want.
that point?
If they keep pursuing a nuclear weapon, I would think so.
Well,
We're yeah, we've got to stop. Like really, global nuclear disarmament would be best, but the countries that already have them aren't going to give them up, especially after what's happening in Ukraine. Um, but yeah, I we cannot let Iran and nobody in the region wants Iran to have a nuclear weapon either. This is not even just a Israel US thing. This is nobody wants them to have a nuclear weapon. And I don't think you can allow that.
Well, I'm not certain that Iran actually wants a nuclear weapon. I mean, we've been told by, Netanyahu and many like him that they want a nuclear weapon, but I mean, for years now they've been just weeks away, but they haven't gotten it. And I think honestly, uh, I think the Iranians are pretty trustworthy in terms of not going for the nuclear weapon if they think that peace is on the table. When Trump pulled out of the JCP, JCPOA in his first term,
Is
the
that the
Iranian,
agreement that paid them to not have a nuclear bomb?
yeah, that's what
Well,
that
to
was
be
the
clear,
inspections.
just click clarification. We didn't pay them. We just unfroze their assets. So we actually didn't give them like US taxpayer dollars, right? We just gave them like control over the assets they already had frozen. But you go ahead, Darren.
Well, basically, even when we pulled out, they still adhered to the agreement for some time before, eventually stopping. I think in hopes that we would get back to our senses. All that to say, I think Iran is a completely reasonable actor, and they've shown enormous restraint during this whole current conflict between Israel and Gaza and them. Only after strikes within Iran did they strike Israel, and they've been provoked. They'd been provoked for some time. So
I don't think that's true. Is it the first drone strike that they sent into Israel? There had been no in Iran's border strikes by Israel. They had just been bombing Hezbollah and
No.
Hamas.
They've had strikes inside of Iran.
They've had strikes now, but when the first strike that Israel or that Iran sent into Israel, that was not prompted by Israel firing into Iran. That was prompted by their war against Hamas and
No,
Hezbollah.
they kill an Iranian general? Isn't that not what prompted it?
They killed an Iranian general in Hezbollah. Like he was in the same. It was in Damascus, I think.
but wasn't
But
it in
that's still
the
not an attack in Iranian soil. That's like, hey, why the hell is your bureaucrat here with terrorists?
So
If
if
but
you keep
they
wasn't
saying
it
that
the
you're not the one
Iranian
funding them.
embassy that was bombed and therefore it was Iranian soil? So if somebody like bombed an American embassy and like killed a high-ranking official, you would
Okay,
agree we would have the right to bomb them.
right. So yeah, and technically that would be. I mean, that would be Iranian soil. Is that what happened? Was it an Iranian embassy that they bombed?
I believe that was what preceded it, but
it
I
is, yes.
okay.
Okay. So yeah, I'm gonna give it to you on a technicality, but like not Iran proper. You know what I'm saying?
Oh,
Um,
I just think that that's BS. If they killed an American general, let's say in, Ukraine, right? It wouldn't bother us to be like, you killed an American general. Do you think that the country that did that would get to say, well, he wasn't on American soil? I think that's BS, and I think you know it.
but the thing is, like, so again, he was there with Hezbollah.
Hell, he was
Like,
probably the target, Garrett. Like what do you mean?
I mean, Iran is funding Hezbollah. Like, it's pretty well established. I right now, so just to kind of pull it back, I don't think war with Iran right now is the answer. Uh, I don't agree with Trump going back to this. Like, I don't know if he's actually paying them now or whatever the deal is that was on the table for Iran to not enrich uranium beyond like 3%. Uh, but it's basically the same deal that Obama gave them. And I'm really not on board with that. Like, to me, it is no, you're not going to develop a nuclear bomb. And if I find out you're trying to, or you continue to try to enrich this uranium, we're going to have a bigger problem.
Well, would you rather
And
have that or would you rather have war with Iran?
I mean, does that mean war with Iran, or does Iran back down? Does Iran want war with the United States? Like, I mean, so
I
it
don't
wouldn't
think
even.
they do.
I
But I
think
think
Israel wants war between the
Well,
United
so
States and Iran. But
I
go ahead,
agree.
Darren.
that's
Well, I was just gonna say that, I don't think Iran wants war, but Trump's style is so beyond aggressive, and uh, he does this brinksmanship thing where he, puts, he's putting all these like B-2 bombers in that island in the Indian Ocean, and he's making these obvious threats to Iran, and I just don't think threatening them is the way to go. I think they're more they've shown themselves to be more receptive to a mutual respect kind of thing. And brinksmanship has worked in other cases, so I'm not totally against it, but they don't seem to be too receptive to it. I'm just all that to say, I think if Trump would just calm down the rhetoric a little, there could be a lot of progress made, and I think the Iranians would be surprisingly receptive. I don't think they want a war at all.
I just disagree. I think that a strong arm in the Middle East is what we need um, against Iran. Like I said, a firm line in the sand that you will not enrich uranium. Not because we're giving you money, not because we're. Frankly, I don't know the context of releasing their funds. Maybe there might be an argument I haven't heard that they need to have those funds released regardless. But my point with the nuclear weapon is no, you are not going to enrich uranium beyond this percentage. And if I find out you are, there are going to be consequences. And that's all I would say to them. And like I'm fine with the B-2 bombers. I'm fine. Honestly, we need a bigger presence in Eurasia. Well, specifically Asia. And I guess that's Asia Minor. Would Iran be in Asia Minor?
No, that's the Middle East.
Okay. Well,
Asia Minor is
anyway.
like Turkey.
Oh, okay. Yeah, sorry. I'm confused. But no, I'm fine with having a stronger presence, and I'm fine with strong arming them and saying no, we're not going to allow this. And if they don't want war, then they'll stop. And if they don't actually want a nuclear weapon, then there's no reason for them to risk it.